What's up, guys? It's ZacJacDan here, coming to you with my first part video for progression of an action figure collection. Just wanting to let you guys see where I've come from and where I am now, from 2000 to 2015, where I have collected so many different collections, starting from scratch, selling them, and then where I am now. My son is 15 years old now, so we've been collecting pretty much since the beginning. So let's show you where we got started at. So at Toys R Us stores back in the day, I used to see these aisles just full of toys and just wanted and wanted and wanted. You know, I'd put them on my wish list, my Christmas wish list. Whenever we get the Sears catalog, I'd just wanted everything that I saw in the stores because there was so much. Of course, my parents couldn't afford it all, but I did have little pieces of each collection. When I was around 1998, 99, 2000, right before I was getting married, I found a store called Rebel Base Comics and Toys in Charlotte, North Carolina, off Independence Boulevard. They've moved since then, but I walked in the store and I just saw my childhood again. I saw that Toys R Us store. Of course, they weren't in package like Toys R Us was, but they were loose, and they were figures that I still wanted to this day. So it made me just decide, okay, I think this is what I want to be. I want to be an action figure collector. So I bought a few of the G.I. Joe vehicles that I didn't have. So G.I. Joe was not the direction I went. I bought a few of the vehicles, but I did not buy a lot. What I did go with on eBay was I went to He-Man and started buying the 1980s He-Man figures that I was missing. But what caused me to really, I think, get into action figure collecting was the fact that when I had my Star Wars vehicles, they weren't in the greatest shape, because they were toys and I was a kid. And I believe, actually, the majority of the Star Wars vehicles that I had were handed down to me from my cousins. But my mom actually took these specific four right here in this picture and threw them away without telling me one day. And I think that crushed me as an adult here. Or as a child, and kind of ran into my adulthood and made me realize that this is where I want to be. I want to collect this stuff. So some of the G.I. Joe figures that I had are vehicles that I had. These are some of them right here, and I've gone through these and I've actually sold them so that I could continue on with other collectibles. But these were some of the ones that I had from my childhood that I very much enjoyed growing up, and I hoped at the time that my kid would enjoy them. So Thundercats was another one that I saw at a friend's house who had the entire collection. He had the Thundercats lair, he had the tank. All I had was one. I had Lino. But again, this was one that as I started collecting, again in the 98 to 2000 time frame, this was one that I had hoped to grow. So Silverhawks was another one from the 80s that I loved to watch on TV, and when I look at these figures, especially the play sets and the villains, I just love to see and would have loved to have collected this. I only had two of them. I had can't remember his name, the guy with the guitar, and I had the villain, the green guy with the blades. Again, I can't remember their names, but this was a great show, and I liked the vehicles, the Squid and the Mirage Jet. This would have been a really cool one to collect, and these are very rare if you go on eBay and start looking. This would be a nice one for some distribution place to come out and rebuild for us, and just like they have the Motu classics, and they started trying to do it with the Thundercats. So Transformers, I did have Optimus Prime, I did have Megatron, Starscream. I didn't have a lot, maybe I had 20, but I did sell those to that Rebel Base store. They do buy old vintage figures from you. Sold them so I can collect other things. But what I wanted out of the Transformers, as I was thinking about it, was these combiners above. I wanted to try and do the combiners. I didn't go with that route with them because I actually saw the bootleg distribution place come out with so much better looking versions of these that I thought, whoa, I want those instead. $350 figures. I didn't go that route. My friend did. He bought a few of them, and he still has, I believe, the Constructicons in the bootleg versions. Can't think of what the name of it is, but and he also had Bruticus at one time. But those are really cool to see. Predaking was one I definitely wanted. When I was collecting them, I would actually take little pieces of each one because I didn't have the whole thing, and build my own custom combiner, just so I would have a combiner. So that's kind of the crazy things you had to do as a kid. So these 4 vehicles down to the bottom left corner were the ones that I had for Mask, and this is a really neat collection. But I always wanted that Boulder Hill, never got it. Another one that when I first started collecting, I was thinking, man, I want all this. I want to get the G.I. Joe, the Transformers, the Thundercats, the Mask. I want to try to get all this. But the one I stuck with was He-Man at first, before my kid got to a certain age to determine whether or not he liked it or not. And the cool thing about that was in 2000, we got the He-Man and the Masters of the Universe television show that gave us new action figures. So that actually gave me the ability to start over again, because when I got married, I actually stopped my eBay shopping for my old vintage He-Mans. And they just kind of sat in the closet for years after I got married. But in 2002, I thought, man, I'm so behind on the 2000X He-Man. There's no way that I can catch up with this. And then I found an eBay auction that sold every single one of the ones up to that point for a way cheaper price than I could have ever found in the stores. So, unbeknownst to my wife, I went ahead and purchased all those, pulled out my old He-Mans, bought a display case from my neighbor, and put them up on my shelf, hoping that my son would pique some interest in him for this He-Man stuff, right? The ones I didn't ever get was the Eternia playset here, the Scarecrow, and the Gwildor. There's a few of them here in the next couple of slides that you'll see that I didn't get as well. But that these are some of the pricier ones that at the time I was not spending money on. In the 2000 series, they stopped it and became NECA mini statues or Staction figures. And that series didn't last very long either, but they got down to these last 2 figures right here. And for some reason, my order that I had ordered did not come. And these figures ended up being about $250 each. So at the time, I did not purchase these either. And there's a couple more of the 80s figures that I did not get. So I did not have an 80s complete collection, but to me, it was pretty fabulous. And you'll see that in part 2. You'll see some of the pictures of my collection. But when the Hulk movie came out, my son fell in love with Marvel and comic book movies. So would never sit down and watch a single episode of He-Man with me. Thundercats, none of that stuff. So he was never interested in it. So I purchased this first figure, this thing, Smash and Grab or whatever it's called, and that was the beginning of the end for us with Marvel and DC collecting of action figures, and that was the end of my He-Man at the time. So there's a place they called Retro Reboot that didn't last very long, but it was definitely another place that we went to in Pineville, North Carolina, that had collections of figures that they would buy. You see these piles and piles of figures here. You see their display case. Had all kinds of stuff, Mask, G.I. Joe, Transformers, He-Man, DC, and Marvel. Of course, I would stick with Marvel, but I'd go in there and kind of get back into the wanting of these other waves. Never went with it, though, because of money. You got to make the choice whenever you're making these action figure collections. You see some very rare ones. You see that Hulk on the left, that Pit right there. It's about a $150 figure. I had 4 of those and sold them all. Giant Man, those are the build figures there. See them in package too. They'd get them in package, and they'd have video games and other things like that. Just a really cool store. This store did not have comic books like Rebel Base does. Bins just full of figures that they buy from collectors. They'd go to collectors' homes, check out their collection before they purchase it, and then make a big purchase like this right here to fill up their store. And then we'd also go to a place called Free Comic Book Day every year as a ongoing thing. We probably did this about at least 10 years worth. We get free comic books every year, and we go to Rebel Base and pick up any kind of loose figures that we could find for a sale price that day. And just enjoyed being with each other, hanging out in lines, talking to other collectors, other fans of the books, and going on with our life as collectors. It's been a fun thing to do growing up in this world. In Charlotte, we have something called Heroes Convention, hosted by Heroes on Hard to Find comic book store. You walk through these aisles, aisle by aisle by aisle, and just find toys. You find comics. You find artists. You find shirts and people in cosplay. Just the convention got bigger and bigger every year, and it's just something we could do as a father and son. Guys, please comment on my video, hit a like, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you can see when my next part 2 through 5 videos come out, so you can see the pictures and explanations of where I came from as a collector and where I am now. I appreciate you watching. Talk to you guys later.